Ready Player One was kind of fucking dumb. I mean, I had fun overall, I guess, and I was never bored despite the runtime, but it's dumb. It is so incredibly dumb. Everything about the film's plot just falls apart the second you start thinking about it. So I'm gonna spoil the whole movie and talk about how nothing makes any sense. Here we go. Basically, as soon as the movie starts, there's things happening that are just kind of stupid. The main character is narrating to us through a voiceover and shoving exposition down our throat to explain that everybody has a virtual reality headset in the year 2044 and everybody hangs out in this cool game called the Oasis. And Spielberg thought, how am I gonna show that everybody in this trailer park is wearing a virtual reality headset? Oh, I know. Let's just have them doing it in front of gigantic windows that take up half their trailer. One of these shots featured a large woman groping herself on a stripper pole. You're not gonna close the curtains? So then we see inside the virtual world and we're told that there are limitless possibilities as to what a person can be. They try to explain that some people have omnidirectional platforms underneath their feet, but that doesn't explain how people are jumping on shit. Not once did any of the characters have to readjust their position in the virtual world because it was conflicting with the real world. There are shots in the movie that show crowds of people running around in the real world outside with their virtual reality goggles. You'd think at least one character in the movie would be like, hold on, I can't go any further because there's a real building in my way. I'm going to have to readjust and face the other way while compensating for my direction. Are these people not at risk for running into each other? During the opening montage, they try to explain that some people are incredibly invested in the game. They show an Asian businessman at a desk right beside dozens of other people that are just quietly working, and then I guess something really bad happens to him in the game, so he rips off his headset and starts running toward the window because he wants to kill himself. But how was he playing the game just sitting at his desk? Was he using a mouse and keyboard? If that's what they were implying, then you'd think there would be a lot more people doing that. Yeah, there's a $500 billion fortune up for grabs somewhere hidden in the game that you have to find, and everybody's working really hard to try and be the person to get it. But why would anybody use a mouse and keyboard when you can just walk on a treadmill inside your trailer? Is that what he was doing or not? There's a gigantic corporation that's also trying to find this Easter egg, and they've employed like 300,000 people to find it. Why don't they use a mouse and keyboard? You'd think that that would be more cost effective and also improve their chances at finding the Easter egg. But they have this entire warehouse of virtual reality treadmills and boxes that people are using, unless that's not actually what was happening. The head of this corporation has like a lazy boy recliner that he just sits in. How is he moving around? There's parts where people are hanging onto ledges trying to crawl back up because they're gonna fall. What exactly is happening when the characters are fighting each other in the virtual world? He also decides to use a special suit so he can feel everything that's happening. So like if somebody in the virtual world gropes you, then the suit gropes you, but it also makes you feel pain. Why would he even wear that when he knows he's going into a battle? It seems like it would only just give people a clear advantage over you. So why don't you just rewire the suit to make it tickle you instead, seeing as how you're the head of this gigantic corporation, a corporation that has built warehouses full of virtual reality prison cells that you're keeping people in, which for some reason have latches on the inside that you can use to escape. Like, oh, all you had to do was just reach up. I also like how this corporation is just legally allowed to imprison you for some reason. Basically, if you owe them too much money, they kidnap you and make you move shit around for them in the Oasis. Because apparently they can make back the losses by having you perform manual labor in the virtual world? How does that make any sense? Yeah, move these heavy objects from here to there and just make sure they're all in a straight line and you'll work off your debt at some point, don't worry. How are they making money off of that? This is the same virtual world where we saw entire vehicles basically just spawn out of nowhere. The main character can fit his entire vehicle inside his pocket and he just throws it onto the ground and it expands into something he can drive. But you can't do the same with these road mines you're trying to lay? Why the hell would you need physical labor in the virtual world? What the hell is going on? Now, I didn't exactly go into this movie expecting everything to make sense. At the very least, I was just hoping for a bunch of pop culture references, and yet somehow even that felt underwhelming. Apparently, all pop culture related to film and music ended in 1989, except maybe the Iron Giant, I guess. The only current pop culture references were all just video games. We saw Tracer, we saw some Master Chiefs. Apparently, Battletoads had a huge resurgence in the year 2044. I don't know, you'd think that half of the characters would just be running around as anime girls in maid outfits, and the other half would be Ugandan Knuckles. Here in the Oasis, there's no limit to what you can be. Why was there only one furry? Maybe they were quarantined. Why didn't didn't anyone want to be a T-Rex or a King Kong? Seemed like almost everybody going into the battle at the end was just a normal-sized human being type character. You'd think that more people would show up to that as a kaiju or something. Are there limitations to what you can be and you were just lying at the beginning of the movie?
You can do anything. Be anyone.
Or has the movie just seriously underestimated how wild and crazy people's imaginations can be? Even if we completely throw away the idea of character limitations, this movie has seriously underestimated the general population. You're telling me that 5 fucking years go by where people are trying to compete in a race and can't figure out how to do it, and not one person has tried completing the race backwards? That was the secret the whole time. You just had to drive in reverse, and the clue was the most obvious shit I've ever seen. All the main character had to do was just look at a video file of the game developer saying, "Man, you know, it'd be really cool if we could just go backwards, super fast, haha, top speed, overdrive." The most obvious shit in the world that he found by going to the archives of where the developer said to look. Somehow 5 fucking years have gone by, and not a single person in this 300,000 employee corporation could get the fucking hint. What? I know the game developer literally said to look in the archives for a clue, but I couldn't see anything there. It's probably nothing. Let's stop looking for it. Even if the clue wasn't painstakingly obvious, there's no fucking way that 5 years can go by and not a single person drives backwards. And even if we ignore that, the race where people were driving forwards isn't randomly generated. The second time we see the race, every single obstacle that the characters have to avoid is playing the exact same beat by beat. There would be highly detailed walkthroughs after 5 years. Why is everybody that drives on this track reacting to every obstacle as though it's the first time they're on it? You know, for a gigantic corporation that's spent 5 years trying to beat a fucking race, you're doing a terrible job. The main character winds up getting close to the end and there's like a big jump before the finish line, but he winds up saving this other girl by making her bail out of her motorcycle before hitting the jump, and the King Kong AI pops his head out from underneath the jump and destroys her motorcycle, at which point they say, "No one ever makes it past King Kong at the end. This is impossible." But the movie explains later that people form clans. I mean, the entire race could be populated by people just working for this corporation. If 5 of them tried to hit the jump at once, one of them could have made it. There doesn't seem to be any kind of limitations on what kind of a vehicle you can have. Why not just have one that propels it upwards with rockets? Why not have a vehicle with a ramp attached to it that other vehicles can use to propel themselves off of? You're telling me that 5 fucking years go by and not one person has thought of this? You're telling me that there hasn't been a single person that's been able to beat this just off of muscle memory alone? But Adam, when they die in the game, they lose all their shit, and so they have to start from scratch and then build themselves up again. They can't just keep doing it over and over. Wrong. There is a gigantic corporation that is involved in this, and the game allows you to give items to other players. You can buy and sell things in this virtual economy. Why don't they just have the same 30 people doing the race every day while everybody else gets loot for them? This doesn't make any sense. So somehow the main character is the first one to beat the race, and he did so by just driving backwards because nobody else thought to do that. And so his name's on this gigantic scoreboard that everybody can see, and somehow this doesn't make him a target that people try to kill immediately. Are there no trolls in the future? You don't think there's gonna be somebody that just tries to kill him for the attention? Everybody around him is just like, "Whoa, man, that was really cool. Can I get a picture?" There is a purchasable item in this game that destroys every player and item in the entire sector. You don't think that there would be people that just use that to fuck everybody else up? There would be people that would literally just grind and collect loot until they can afford that item, purchase it, and then fuck everybody. What is this doing in your game? This movie doesn't understand how human beings work. So eventually the bad corporation man finds out who the main character is, and apparently he wasn't able to do this without the main character saying his first name. Aha, he said his name, now we've got him. So they track him down in the real world and they're like, "Yo, we know that you've been inside your trailer for the past 3 days and haven't left because we've got drones watching you." But he wasn't in his trailer, so they accidentally blow up his aunt and uncle instead. instead. These drones just fly towards his trailer and plant explosives on it and wind up killing about 50 people that weren't him. How did you not see him leave the trailer? He was a good 50 feet away, it seemed. Then I guess they completely forget about these explosive drones for the rest of the fucking movie. Why didn't you use those when you were trying to chase him down in that vehicle? Apparently they were trying to kill him, but they were just doing a very terrible job at it. And to no surprise, the main character seems to get over the deaths of his family and neighbors pretty fucking quickly. He meets up in real life with the girl that he met in the virtual world, the one who's really insecure about the way she looks and is like, I'm not pretty in the real world, I'm only pretty in the virtual world. You wouldn't like me if we met. But it's an attractive redhead model with just a birthmark on her eye that she can easily cover with her hair at any point. Hasn't that happened before? Isn't that kind of like a trope at this point? Oh no, I'm just so ugly, but the main character is just such a good guy that he loves me despite me being so ugly. I am totally not pretty at all. I am such an ugly person because of this birthmark on my face. Leave it to Steven fucking Spielberg to play the movie as safely as possible. Nah, we couldn't possibly have her be not attractive. How could we possibly expect anyone to relate to a character that isn't a model? Eventually, he winds up meeting his other friends from the virtual world in real life. I guess it was just a wild coincidence that they all lived in the same city as him. Some Asian guy shows up, and before he even says a word, the main character's like, it's Daito! How did you know that? Is this some low-key racism or what? So the race was one of 3 challenges, and I already explained how stupid that was. The second challenge was actually kind of cool. They basically have to enter the world of the film The Shining. It's a really cool sequence overall, actually. It appears as though they actually used footage from the film and edited the characters into it, and they even gave the entire sequence kind of a film grainy look to it, not one that was forced and overbearing. It was actually really subtle and worked very well. They even scored the sequence with music from the actual film. For the most part, it was pretty cool, until the end of the sequence where the girl is jumping on top of floating zombies from one to the other and is about to fall and keeps having to hoist herself back up. I'm sorry, what exactly is going on in the real world while you're doing this? What kind of fucking setup is allowing you to do that? Oh yeah, I almost forgot about the part with the Zemeckis cube. The 2 main characters are in trouble and there's people that are shooting at them and he's like, no wait, I'll just use the Zemeckis cube. It rewinds time by a minute. So everybody that showed up to shoot him just winds up going backwards in time by a minute. But what exactly is happening in the real world? Are they just stuck watching their characters go backwards in time? It couldn't possibly erase the memories of people playing the game in real life, could it? Because when the other guys start going backwards in time, the main characters just turn around the corner and start hanging out. It's as if they don't believe that the characters that were just shooting at them won't come back in a minute. There's no sense of urgency to the scene whatsoever. Also, why didn't she go back in time too? You were the one that used the Zemeckis cube, not her. She did not have one of these cubes that you just used. Why is she not also going back in time by 1 minute? So anyway, they obviously make it to the 3rd challenge, and it's kind of stupid. There's a television set with some retro games attached to it, and basically you're supposed to use the game to unlock some sort of a clue, or else the ground breaks out from underneath you and you die, at which point the next person in line gets a chance. But the only reason there's a line there to begin with is because it's just the corporation that's there. Did the developer not anticipate that more than one person could find out about this place? Couldn't there theoretically be millions of people trying to beat this fucking game on this single television? You think they're all gonna politely just form a queue? This challenge is basically just designed in a way that would never fucking work. As soon as somebody picks up the controller, someone else would just kill them. Why the hell would you design the challenge this way? This movie does not understand how the human brain works. So anyway, the main character obviously finds out the thing, and then he's presented with some contract in the virtual reality world, but our main character is like, no, it's a test. He doesn't want me to actually sign it here. He wants me to refuse it because of some other thing that we learned earlier about the morals of the game developer. And apparently he was right. He refuses to sign the contract, and the game's like, good job, you passed the test. But what would have happened if he didn't? Would nobody get the prize? Would he not be able to just try again? If one of the players from the gigantic corporation wound up doing that, wouldn't they just tell their supervisor to make sure that the next person there doesn't do that? What was the point of that? Meanwhile, the evil corporation man shows up to the trailer park and just walks through crowds of people with a gun. They are all fully aware that he's there to kill this little boy, and nobody else in this American trailer park has any kind of weapon themselves. All right. Then the the cops show up, and all I'm thinking is, where the fuck have you been the entire movie? The rest of the film plays out as though this is a world without cops, but they just show up at the end out of nowhere. Anyway, now our main character is in control of the Oasis, and pretty much the last line of dialogue in the entire movie just turns him into an asshole. He's narrating to the audience about how he's banned that evil corporation from being able to imprison people for slave labor in the virtual world. And then he's like, yeah, we also shut down the Oasis every Tuesday and Thursday, because the lesson I learned is that as great as the virtual world can be, there are some things that are in real life that are important to experience too, and everybody should take a break from the virtual world to experience the happy things in their own lives. So why don't you just decide to log off every Tuesday and Thursday, you fucking dick? Why do you have to force everybody in the world to do that? What if there are people that do experience life in the real world and their only days off of work where they can relax are Tuesdays and Thursdays? What if visiting the Oasis on Tuesdays and Thursdays was the only thing keeping them from fucking offing themselves? What if there is nothing in someone's real life that makes them happy at all and you're putting them through misery? I'd love for the movie to just cut to some dude in a wheelchair with no family or friends. It was such an aggravating way to force in some bullshit lesson at the end of the movie, and as the narration is playing, it shows him cuddling his girlfriend. Man, everybody would just be so much better off if they could only appreciate what they have at home. Not everybody has a girlfriend, you dick! Anyway, that about sums up most of my issues with this movie. Some parts were kinda cool and fun to watch, but the movie is just so incredibly stupid. And the more I think about it, the more it falls apart. I guess it was kind of what it tried to be, more or less. I'm not sure if it tried to make any sense at all whatsoever. Maybe I just wish that I could have had fun while not also being infuriated. I don't know, I guess I would recommend it, kind of. There are people that love this movie and there are people that hate this movie, and neither of you are wrong for doing so. As for myself, I'm not really sure what to think at this point. I guess I'm giving this one a 5 out of 10, maybe a 4. It's definitely not a 6. 4 or a 5. That's my rating for the movie.